Hello and welcome to today's edition of Severe Thunderstorm Outlook. Still have a lot to talk about, mostly today, but we have some ongoing threats into the weekend. I did want to start with I always get this fresh on Fridays, sometimes late on Thursday, but this is the EPS mean 500 millibar flow for the next week starting Monday. So it just kind of gives you a general idea of what's going on. This, hot. Nothing's going on. Here, though, we do have this little slide still going on, meaning that thunderstorms are encouraged to form. Now, this is an average over 7 days, but in reality, little disturbances flow along this. Little jet streaks can enhance the wind field enough to support supercells. So this pattern is generally in effect still for this area, although it does seem a little bit subdued. And then this is monsoonal flow, in case you were wondering. And I say that because the next thing I'm going to show you is the mean dew point, even though it doesn't say that up there. Ignore that. I forgot to change it. Anyway, the mean dew points go up considerably in the western U.S., which is good for more widespread rainfall. And this is all because moisture is allowed to come up from this direction, the Pacific and into the west. Otherwise, it doesn't have much of a work around really to get it from the Gulf that far west. And then we also do see an enhancement of the dew points here, but not as strong as what we were looking at this time last week. So it looks like this entire zone here is settling down a little bit, but all it takes, of course, is one really good jet streak to get things going again. Here is a supercell composite. This is produced by Northern Illinois University, so it's up at the highest 30% chance of a supercell in this same general corridor that's been pounded for days and days and days. And I don't know if you heard, but the derecho that occurred on Tuesday, we knew there were some embedded tornadoes in that in Chicago, and they verified 4 of those, and also one over in Columbus, Ohio, that same day, same morning, only a different thunderstorm pattern. It's been crazy. Illinois in particular has just gotten hit really hard. And again today, parts of Illinois are in this number 2 risk here, 2 out of 5, which is what is still referred to as the slight risk, which means it's mostly how much coverage the severe weather will get, but also a little bit of intensity included in that. So you can see pretty much central and southern Iowa is in this, the northern sliver of Missouri on over into Illinois, as far east as Peoria and the Bloomington-Normal area. Those regions. They did up the tornado risk. Now, this morning, I didn't record this morning because I was wondering if they were going to do this, and they did. They put this up to a 5% risk here in northern Missouri and southern Iowa. It's been interesting because some of the shorter range, like StormNet, actually nailed this area for tornadoes days ago and then has backed off since. And now we're back up to a higher percentage. From Des Moines south to the northern, I know that actually the 5% risk doesn't quite get into northern Missouri. There's also a wind risk associated with that. It's a 15% chance of a severe wind gust 59 miles or higher in roughly that same area. In fact, it really does kind of define the slight risk area. I did look at NATOcast. The 12Z update does actually verify here with SPC's outlook of a 5% risk there in south central Iowa, south of Des Moines, southwest of Des Moines, south of I-80, that area, but not quite to the Missouri border. Also, when I record this late, I also get the 12Z CSU, Colorado State University model, and this is about the same as it was this morning when I was looking at it, except it covers more ground. That's the tornado forecast being restricted, though, to 2% chance of a tornado within 25 miles, and just kind of a broad brush wind risk along this entire zone from Kansas back through the Midwest and ending in Virginia and North Carolina. Then we go on to the weekend, all-important weekend here. Saturday, we have 2 divided severe thunderstorm risks, and I'll leave it that way for the sake of this video today. We have this kind of this upslope area here east of Denver, eastern Colorado, parts of Nebraska and Kansas. And then we're still looking at sort of a slide of thunderstorms here from southern Michigan down through Ohio, Indiana, ending up around Charlotte, including parts of Kentucky, West Virginia, and even a small sliver of Tennessee. The wind risk is the primary factor for these areas here. Those 2 areas, in fact, exactly mirror the slight risk area. So it is primarily issued because of wind. But this part of the segment right here is actually interesting because the Storm Prediction Center put that at a 2% risk of tornadoes from southern parts of Michigan through northeast Indiana and pretty solidly into Ohio, including the Columbus area. And as I mentioned, they had that tornado a couple of days ago. NATOcast for tomorrow. Again, when I wait, I can see its cast for tomorrow. I can get the 12Z data for the next day if I wait long enough. So they're actually putting a 5% tornado risk in that SPC area, but abruptly stopping it before it gets up into southern Michigan. So SPC is a little more worried about storms initiating a bit quicker and a little more with the tornadic possible signature there in southern parts of Michigan for Saturday. And then the hail risk is really just upslope. This is where the air is cold enough aloft, mostly because the jet stream flow is supporting colder temperatures aloft out here, whereas out in the east of here it is not. Now, finally, CSU's outlook for tornadoes tomorrow is in the same area as everything I just showed you, just smaller. And that same wind risk just arcs from Kansas back through the Carolinas. You may have heard this referred to as a ring of fire. In practical application, I would actually refer to this more as an arc of fire because it hardly ever completes the ring. And sometimes you might get thunderstorms down here, but you rarely get them all the way around the circle. So it's an interesting kind of a phrase, a slang that's been used for this pattern. I'm going to boycott and call it an arc of fire today. It doesn't sound probably as good as a ring of fire, and there's no song associated with it. Anyway, so on Sunday we have this two minimal areas here, marginal risk areas, but they cover almost the same area out to east of the Rockies, and kind of this global sort of slight risk for thunderstorms from Missouri due east to the Atlantic coast. I broadcast from the Ozarks, so this is new information for us today. There is a marginal risk of severe thunderstorms in parts of the Ozarks, especially northeast of Springfield, for Sunday. Also for Sunday, we have a tornado risk that's way out here around Harrisonburg, Pennsylvania, down to the nation's capital, including almost all of Maryland. They're actually at a 5% risk according to this outlook, but SPC has not pulled the trigger on that as of yet. That's Sunday. Moving ahead to Monday, nothing from the SPC, but there is a risk area in the Carolinas and Virginia. That seems like a very common part of what's of the same pattern. We look for new clusters of development here, and then the old ones exiting here. So that jet stream pattern is breaking down a little bit. In fact, if I move to Thursday, I only see this risk area over here in the Carolinas and nothing else replacing it here. So that is a sign of some good news, at least. Maybe things are settling down. Week 2 kind of confirms that same general pattern, but the probabilities are lower. And then week 3 on the outlook for supercells really goes silent. Not much going on in week 3.